In life, we have seen many great rivalries. Kyle versus Cartman, Mr. Krabs versus Plankton, America versus Afghanistan. Okay, maybe not that last one. But we have seen some entertaining rivalries, especially in the WWE. WWE rivalries have been responsible for some of the greatest moments in professional wrestling history. From entertaining matches, to emotional victories, to shocking surprises. We've seen some of the best go at it, keeping us on the edge of our seat, waiting to see what happens next. Like Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. The rivalry begins in early 2005, where Rey Mysterio is set to face the Basham brothers for the WWE Tag Team Championship. But there's a problem. Rey doesn't have a tag team partner, so Rey goes searching around and eventually chooses Eddie Guerrero. They would go on to beat the Bashams to win the tag titles. So far, everything's going great. Two good friends teaming together and are champions. Until they run into Chavo. Chavo starts moving like a snake and attempts to turn Rey and Eddie against each other. He tells Rey Eddie was plotting on turning on him, and he tells Eddie Rey was holding him back. Eventually, Chavo's words get into the mind of Eddie, and Eddie goes to Rey and proposes a friendly match against each other at WrestleMania. They face off with Rey coming out victorious. A few weeks later, Rey and Eddie would defend the WWE Tag Team Championships against M&M in a losing effort. They argue after the match, and Eddie would push Rey, leaving Rey looking shocked. The next week on SmackDown, Rey and Eddie would use their rematch clause to get another shot at the Tag Team Championships. But halfway through the match, Eddie would leave Rey to get beat down by M&M. On the May 5th, 2005 episode of SmackDown, Rey would get jumped by Chavo and M&M. Eddie would run to the ring looking to help Rey, but was like, psych, and started beating down on Rey and suplexed him on the steel steps, turning heel. Rey and Eddie would fight at Judgment Day, with Rey winning by disqualification. But it wasn't until the June 30th, 2005 episode of SmackDown where things really started to heat up. Eddie Guerrero would come out and show footage of him at Dominic's daycare. Before we continue, let's break this situation down from a stranger's perspective. A grown man pulls up to a playground with children present, gives one of the kids candy, sits him on his lap, and asks him if he wants to know a little secret, and has this look on his face.
Police! Help! Police! Help! Police! Help!
Rey Mysterio comes out and begs Eddie not to tell the secret, but Eddie's not going to give up that easily, and shoves a Twizzler in Rey Mysterio's face. At the Great American Bash, Eddie Guerrero faces Rey Mysterio, where if Rey wins, the secret stays hidden, but if Eddie wins, he tells Dominic the secret. Rey wins, and after the match, him and his son are happy, until Eddie tells the secret anyway. Oh no, the man who's known for lying, cheating, and stealing actually lied about keeping his promise. Who would have known? With Dominic in the ring, Eddie says that he's his real father, not Rey. Dominic is looking at Rey, realizing his whole life is a lie. Rey tries to comfort him, but Dominic is having none of this and leaves the ring. The next week on SmackDown, Eddie drops another bombshell and says that he got a hoe pregnant but didn't want the kid, so he gave him to Rey because Rey was firing blanks, so he couldn't get the job done. A week later, Eddie tries to take back what's his by giving Rey custody papers to hand over Dominic. The next week on SmackDown, Eddie brings CPS with him to force Rey to give Dominic to him. Rey and Eddie argue back and forth until Rey is able to goad Eddie into a match at SummerSlam. At the end of the segment, CPS decides to take Dominic to foster care until their match at SummerSlam. At SummerSlam, Rey and Eddie would face off in a ladder match for the custody of Dominic. During the match, while Eddie is on the ladder, Dominic would come into the ring and shake the ladder. Eddie would hop off, yell at Dominic, and attempt to hit him, but Rey steps in. Near the end of the match, Eddie's at the top of the ladder, about to win, until Vicky comes out and tips it over, causing Eddie to fall. Rey ends up climbing the ladder and grabbing the briefcase to win the match. So Rey Mysterio went through all this trouble, all this stress with Eddie Guerrero to keep his son, just to end up like this. After this, Rey can no longer call himself the top dog in the family. Rey is now second in command. He doesn't call the shots anymore. This is possibly the worst thing that could happen to a father. Sad to see it. The next rivalry is a rivalry that showcases the talent of an up-and-coming superstar. This rivalry showed that this superstar has the potential to be at the top of the company, be the man, and his name is Randy Orton. In the summer of 2003, Randy Orton would begin a feud with Mick Foley that would end up setting the stage for his legendary career. It all begins backstage on the June 23rd, 2003 episode of Raw. Mick Foley is backstage signing his book for Vince McMahon. Then Randy Orton and Ric Flair walk by, and Foley, being the nice guy that he is, compliments them on their match that they just had. But Ric Flair starts wilding out and attacks Mick Foley. Mick Foley claps back with some punches and eventually pulls out Mr. Socko, but Randy Orton attacks him from behind. Randy Orton beats up Mick Foley until they get to the stairwell. With Mick Foley at the edge of the stairs, Randy Orton kicks Foley in the head, sending him rolling down the stairs like a sack of potatoes. Mick Foley would go MIA for 6 months until the December 15th, 2003 episode of Raw. Mick Foley would come back to challenge Randy Orton for his Intercontinental Championship. If Mick Foley won, Eric Bischoff would have to leave Raw, but if Randy Orton won, Mick Foley will never be able to come back to WWE. Before the bell rings, Foley leaves the ring and starts pacing back and forth at ringside, trying to psych himself up. Orton, looking confused, watches Foley acting scary and leaves ringside. Foley gets his things and is about to leave the arena, but is stopped by Orton. Orton taunts Mick and says legends don't cry, then proceeds to spit in his face. At that moment, it was Mick Foley's last chance to show that he was a man and would not tolerate this disrespect. So instead of slapping him around and showing Randy Orton why he's the hardcore legend, he walks away. Mick Foley took a page out of Rey Mysterio's playbook and just accepts getting disrespected. What a shame. Over the next few weeks, Randy Orton would say that Mick Foley was scared to get in the ring with him and that he's better than Mick Foley ever was. A week before the 2004 Royal Rumble, Stone Cold would demand that Mick Foley show up at the Royal Rumble, basically because he said so. At the Royal Rumble, entrant number 21 would be attacked by a mysterious attacker. Stone Cold would yell at the attacker to take his spot. As we wait for the attacker to come out, we hear this. Randy Orton, looking like he's seen a ghost, starts looking around for Mick Foley. Mick Foley comes out and enters the ring and eliminates himself and Randy Orton. So after the Royal Rumble, the other members of Evolution start to get involved in their feud. Every time Mick would stand up to Orton, Flair and Batista would come to his aid and beat down on Mick Foley. Mick Foley would soon realize that he can't do this on his own, so he called a friend to help him, The Rock. The Rock and Mick Foley would face Evolution at WrestleMania in a losing effort. After WrestleMania, on the March 29, 2004 episode of Raw, Mick Foley would get Randy Orton to agree to a no-holds-barred match for the Intercontinental Championship where Evolution is banned from ringside at Backlash. The match at Backlash can be described as a brutal classic. From beginning to end, the match had high intense moments. There were bats wrapped in barbed wire on boards, thumbtacks, trash cans, gasoline, basically the basic essentials for a Mick Foley match. As for Randy Orton, to this day he claims this as the best match in his career. This rivalry is what elevated Randy Orton into the superstar that he is today. Best friends, bitter enemies. The Triple H versus Shawn Michaels rivalry had it all. Unsanctioned match, Elimination Chamber, 3 stages of hell, last man standing, WrestleMania main event, and the match to end all rivalries, Hell in a Cell. In 2002, Shawn Michaels would make his return to professional wrestling, but by that time, Triple H took over Shawn Michaels' spot, won the world title, and proved that he was him. Eventually, trouble would begin to stir between the two, and over the next 2 years, Michaels and Triple H would have classic brutal matches that are still remembered to this day. So let's start from the beginning. At Vengeance 2002, Triple H would be left with the decision to sign with Raw or SmackDown. He would initially choose SmackDown, but Shawn Michaels would come out and convince him to choose Raw. The next night on Raw, Triple H and Shawn Michaels were supposed to have a DX reunion, but like a gold digger when her millionaire husband goes broke, Triple H turned on him. The next week, Triple H would be in the ring saying how the plan was for Shawn Michaels to be his manager, but Michaels' ego got in the way. During the promo, a WWE crew member would tell Triple H that Shawn Michaels got attacked backstage. Triple H goes running backstage and sees a bloody Shawn Michaels on the ground. Triple H kneels down and acts like he cares, even though he was just in the ring and was insulting him for 4 minutes straight. He said Shawn was mentally handicapped, his best days were behind him, and he's not his equal. But here he is on the ground acting like he was worried. Really, Shawn Michaels would eventually show footage that it was Triple H who attacked him. Triple H says he did it to show Shawn he was weak. Shawn then challenges him to a match at SummerSlam. At SummerSlam, Triple H and Shawn Michaels pull out all the stops. Back and forth action, tables, ladders, chairs, belts, and almost any other weapon in the arena was used in that match. It was a 5-star classic with Shawn taking the victory. After the match, Triple H would do what any salty heel would do and attack their opponent after the match. A little while after, Triple H would be given the World Heavyweight Championship by Eric Bischoff. But 2 months later, Triple H would lose the World Heavyweight Championship to Shawn Michaels in the Elimination Chamber. At Armageddon, Shawn Michaels would defend the championship in a 3 stages of hell match. It was a street fight, steel cage, and ladder match, and they went all out. Barbed wire was lit on fire, both men going through tables, everybody got busted open, even Ric Flair, who interfered at one point in the match. I still don't understand how a man in his 50s would bleed as much as he does and still be okay. Ric Flair had to have more blood than the Red Cross by how much he was bleeding. Triple H would end up winning 2-1, regaining the World Heavyweight Championship. The feud would simmer down until the December 29th, 2003 episode of Raw, where Triple H and Shawn Michaels would put out a banger for the World Heavyweight Championship. The match would end in controversy, as when Shawn Michaels pinned Triple H, his shoulders would be on the mat, resulting in him not winning the title. The controversial finish revived the rivalry between Michaels and Triple H. And at the 2004 Royal Rumble, Triple H and Shawn Michaels would compete in a bloody last man standing match that would also end in a draw. Michaels and Triple H would face off at WrestleMania 20, which also involved Chris Benoit, because he won the Royal Rumble. The 3 men would compete in a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. This match is possibly the greatest main event or even match in WrestleMania history that is never talked about again. I wonder why. After both Triple H and Shawn Michaels failed to win the World Heavyweight Championship at Backlash, Triple H and Shawn Michaels would conclude their rivalry at Bad Blood 2004 in the longest Hell in a Cell match in WWE history. Like, dang, I knew they wanted to put on a grand finale to the feud, but the match was too long. It should have been like 30 minutes max. Triple H would win, ending the rivalry. So, this was the first part. There are many more rivalries I want to talk about, so I'll do another epicness of WWE rivalries later down the line. So, in summary, WWE rivalries can be awesome.